mean, you could try to have some. We'll see what Darcy says.
Good afternoon, how was your lunch? So I'm Ruth Stilsky, and I'm a board member of Peace Creative Ministries, and I'm privileged to introduce to you Brandy Wazlowski Garrett. And I was sitting next to her mom in the courtroom when she was 21, hearing her sentence of 8 years. And that's a gut punch for any mother, as you might imagine, and the mother's friend. So she went from being a convicted felon to now owning a top-rated cleaning company in Michigan. That's really top-rated. So without further ado, Brandy.
Thank you. So yes, the gut punch was definitely 8 years. I almost passed out in the courtroom. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I had just given my life over to my Savior, and I thought maybe I'd be released from my charges. But that is not what happened. I still rode off to prison, and I still served 8 years. During that time, because I was so young, you just have to be really careful in there about who you hang out with and what type of crowd you're around, because you will get taken advantage of. And so I went into survival mode in a lot of different ways, and I'm sure I did a lot in there that I would look at today and be highly embarrassed of, and there's things I'll just never speak about again because of that. But I also feel like I tried to walk to the best of my ability in a way that would be respected. I never got beat up. I never had to beat anybody up, none of that stuff. I pretty much just kept my head down and followed all the rules to the best of my ability and just kept my emotions kind of in a cage. So after 8 years, I was released by the parole board with no problem. I didn't have to go in front of them and do anything crazy. They just slipped my file in the door and said, you've done your time and you didn't have a bunch of tickets, and so we're just going to release you. Leaving prison was harder than coming in. About 6 months before my release, I became very scared and afraid because I had no idea what my future held. I didn't know what career I was going to go into. I didn't know how my son was going to react to me because the whole 8 years I didn't see him. He was exactly a year old when I was incarcerated, and he was brought in by a family who just kind of helped mediate our relationship. But I was just very fearful. And so when I got out, my emotions were just in a rage, and I didn't feel like anybody around me understood. And maybe they did, but I didn't give them the chance to understand because I was so scared to explain to people what I was going through. But it was a mixture between, I'm about to leave the only family, all these women that I've known for the last 8 years, go out into a world that they may never see. So it's a little bit of like a guilty feeling. I don't know, maybe like survivor's remorse or something. And so every day I was just crying, missing my family and my friends. And then I have my mom and my dad and my other family who's trying to surround me with their love. And I just would push back because it was too much for me. I didn't really hug anybody for 8 years. I didn't talk to men for 8 years. So there was a lot of different things like that just played a huge role in my life. That now all of a sudden I'm in this world and everybody expects me to be normal, and I can't. I can't connect the dots in my head. I can't figure out why my emotions are doing this to me. And I just went through a lot of panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I would cry every day. If somebody asked how I was doing, I would just start crying because I couldn't even form the words to explain what was going on inside of me. And that's not even to mention okay, I gotta find a job, and I gotta get a vehicle, and I have to go get a test again to even get a license. So there's just so many hoops that you have to jump through when you first get out. Trying to navigate all that on top of my emotions was very difficult. I did have a huge support system. I had, my parents, and I was attending a Christian church at that time, and so everybody surrounded me and tried to help as best as possible. I had people who give me money to help me pay for things, and somebody even provided the money to give my son his first Christmas. So different people helped out like that, and that is all good and well and really, really helped me. But at the same time, no one could touch my emotions. No one could possibly understand what I was going through. So really it just took time and a lot of prayer. And then, I kind of had to face those things on my own. And my parents and the people that were really close to me just kind of had to understand. They had to give me that space. So when people would, ask me questions or hey, do you want this, or which bar of soap do you prefer? And I would just have to tell them, I just need some time, I need some space, and just hopefully they would give that to me. So that's probably the biggest part of understanding coming home for the people around me. And so shortly after I got out, I did land a job. After about 4 months, Traverse City Christian School hired me as their janitor, which is super cool because being a felon, you can't normally work at a school. From there, I started a cleaning company, and like Ruth was saying, it is the top and most rated in northern Michigan now. We do commercial properties, residential, all different types of stuff. So, but that transition, I would say, took me about a year before I could really I could even have like a face-to-face conversation with a male. I knew that one of the most dumb things to do when I got out is to get in a relationship because I'm not ready. I'm literally like a baby in a new world. And so before I left prison, I made that commitment in my head, like I am not gonna do this, I'm not gonna entertain this. And I failed. I got into a relationship 4 months after coming home with a male who also was incarcerated. So I thought, well, he understands me, so I could talk to him and I could do things, and that was just the wrong path. It's the wrong path for anybody. Relationships should be on a back burner until the person can be in society and have a job and have something to bring to the table, have your own place to live or whatever. So that was just one of my biggest failures coming home, and I definitely paid for it. But just thankful for the redemption and the forgiveness of that and moving forward. And now I have an amazing husband who has also been to prison 5 times. I won't throw that in. So I did the one time 8 years, and he did 5 different times shorter bits. So between us, we have a good mixture and a good understanding of what it's like to come home from prison, whether it's a long time or a short time. So yeah. Does anybody have any questions for me? Go for it.
Did you ever feel like you were isolated, like when you got out, did you feel like the world don't care about me, I'm just another number, nobody's gonna even do anything for me, that kind of thing? Did you feel like you were going out into lion's den type of thing to where everybody's just gonna eat you up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that is the normal feeling of somebody coming home. I myself didn't go through that because I had so much support that it was almost overwhelming. Everybody wanted to help, everybody wanted to do stuff for me, and that to me is what was overwhelming. But yes, that's what I hear the most of people coming out. A lot of people come out and go to a transition home because they don't have family to take them in or whatever the case may be, and so that's exactly how they feel. When I would walk around, I remember I was at the hospital with my dad because he worked there, and I watched 2 police officers walk into the room with me, and I instantly, they were staring at me, and I looked at my dad, they know I was just in prison. My dad's like, no, you're just a young, pretty girl, and they're just happened to look over at you like you are fine. So I had those type of feelings, like maybe everybody was staring at me and everybody knew I just got out of prison, like I looked like an inmate, but obviously that wasn't the reality. So yes, great question. Go ahead.
So how long did your parole last, and did you have a good experience with your parole officer or any bad experiences during that time?
Yeah, so parole officers are kind of like corrections officers. However you teach them to treat you is how you're going to be treated. So if you're carrying yourself in a way that shows, I want to be successful, I'm doing everything in my power to do everything that's right, they're going to treat you that way. But if you're showing that parole officer that you're trying to cut corners and do just the bare minimum, they're going to treat you that way. So I particularly didn't have any issues. They actually let me off parole 6 months early. I only did a year because I became a volunteer in the county jail right away and went in as a volunteer. Now obviously that's way different than most people, but again, because of all the support, I had a lot of opportunity, and because I wanted to do what was right, I had a lot of opportunity. So I had a really good experience with my parole officer, Heather Lucinski. I don't even think she's in Traverse City anymore, but I also work with the parole department now for women coming home, for people who don't have anybody or for jobs because we hire felons. So I tend to like the parole department. They usually know what they're doing. They've dealt with a lot of people, like ones that don't care, all the way to people like me who try to be successful. I think they have a pretty good grasp on who's doing what. So yeah, great question. Go ahead.
Hey, what kind of work are you doing in the jail or in the prison?
Yeah, so I'm not anymore. I was a volunteer in Grand Traverse County Jail's Keys to Freedom Ministry. And when COVID happened, I stepped back and things that were going on in my personal life, I didn't feel I was in a position to minister. And I haven't been back since. I'm still approved. If they want me in, I'll come in. But so I would just go in once a week, and we would do like chapel for the girls, so girls with girls, guys with guys. We'd lead chapel, we do the catwalk ministry, which is you just go one-on-one and talk to whoever's in need. So yeah, the Keys to Freedom is still doing that today. Yep. Anybody else? Go ahead.
What, in hindsight, what would have been helpful? Because it sounded like you had a community sort of rally around you, but it might have been overwhelming. So like there's kind of those two extremes, like what would the right amount
the
of,
perfect
yeah, like
balance?
what would have been super helpful from you on day one?
Yeah, so I love that. I think if I would have been given the space to not have everybody try to come see me right away and wanna talk to me on the phone and buy me all this stuff, the last thing you really need when you come out of prison is just a bunch of stuff. You need an amount of necessities, like, cause in prison, right, I lived out of a duffel bag for 8 years. I don't need 10 bars of soap and I gotta pick one. I don't need all this stuff. Like, give me a small setup and let me breathe for at least a week so I can gather my thoughts. And yeah, like just trying to go out and buy all that stuff on day one, that was really hard for me. I almost threw up in the dollar store actually because of all the color. My mom took me in the day after I got home and there was so much color everywhere, it made me nauseous to my stomach. So I had to walk out and I had an anxiety attack at that point. So yeah, I would say just space. Go ahead.
In hindsight, what would your sentence be if you imposed your sentence? And was your 8 years in your mind appropriate for what occurred, or was there another time where during your sentence you felt like, I get it, it's time to go? What would that be?
Yeah, I love that you asked that. I feel like the 8 years I did was completely, it was completely a great thing. I am who I am today because of that time that I was taken away from that world and get to know Yahuwah, my Savior, and spend it reading the Bible and really getting to know who I am and figure out what to do when I hit society. Now, I mentioned earlier I kind of failed on that because I didn't know what to expect. But I think my 8 years was right on point, and it's exactly what was ordained by above, and I'm very grateful I went through that, and I would never change that for anything. When it comes to being sentenced, the thing is they go off of all these different variables and different things, and you don't always know what to expect, but you know, based on the law and the crime that you commit, there's a certain amount of bracket of time they can give you. And mine was 6.5 to 10 years. And so, yeah, he went kind of in the middle, and I get it, because I had crimes from before too. I had a juvenile record, and I mean, I just had a rap sheet. I had 10 misdemeanors and 4 felonies by the time this happened. I wasn't just a person who went out and made one mistake. I was a career criminal. I was selling dope all over Traverse City. It was a known thing. I definitely believe I deserve that 8 years, if not more.
So we've talked a lot about your resources in prison and after. What would you do if you could have a do-over? If you could take this diverse group of people in this room and say, this is the way you could have helped me prior to the path that I took, what would that look like for you if we did that before you headed down the path that you did? What could we do to change your life and influence? Because it sounds like you have a family, dad and mom.
Yep.
You grew up in a decent home.
Yes.
And I find that, you know, a lot of people go down this path for many different reasons. People who do come from good homes, it's genetically, trauma, whatever. If you could do a do-over, how would you organize that with everybody that's in this room today?
Yeah.
Is that even possible?
Absolutely. I've thought about that a lot because I try to help people before they get this far on this path. I think that tough love is one of the most important things. I don't believe that I was given that. I mean, I grew up in a great household, no abuse, no trauma at all. Like, I was the only person in prison that didn't have a traumatic story, you know. I think I needed more tough love. I needed people to put their foot down and say, no, like, you're not supposed to do this, you're breaking the law, I'm gonna turn my back on you. And maybe that would have changed, because instead everybody just, you know, the new definition of love is to just like surround and give and all that, but that's not really what love is. Love is putting your foot down and setting boundaries And, yeah, when people don't abide by those, you have to turn around and let them do their own thing, and then maybe that will get them to turn their life around. So, yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
Sounds like I'm about out of time.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.